Good morning, church. Can you hear me all right? Glad you're here. If you're a visitor with us, you're our honored guest. We have a number today. We'd love to help you through your spiritual journey wherever you are. We'd love to be part of that with you. So, first day of fall. How about that? Football season in full tilt, right, Donald? Right? A lot of football going on, you know. I don't like to embarrass people publicly, but I have been known to make an exception from time to time, right? So like telling all y'all that today is Brian's birthday. Happy birthday, Mr. Brian. Right? So what is that, 29? 26. All right, my bad. Didn't mean to age you. And Will and Taylor are back from their honeymoon. Good to see them. They're up helping with kids' classes. But anyway, so when they come back, we put them to work, man, you know. So they're up there doing the kids' classes. Rob is not here today, so I'm going to fill in a little bit. I'm going to share just a few words, and then we're going to introduce some guests here that I think will be a very exciting time for the life of our church here. If you remember, let me walk down memory lane a little bit. Throughout the end of 2023 or part of 2023 and all of 2024, we've sort of stepped back and revisited who we are as a church and where we're going. We brought in interim ministry partners to help us do that. We have spent countless hours talking about what we've done in the past. I think we've been honest about what's worked, what's not worked, where we want to go in the future, right? And one of the things I'm proud of, rather than sort of a top-down approach, every one of you had the opportunity to be involved in that, sort of helping craft what I jokingly say, what we want to be when we grow up kind of thing, you know? And so figuring out the future direction of this church. We've done congregational surveys, we've done workshops, we've done sermon series on a host of topics. We've done a lot of things, and part of the output of that work that you have all been part of, and thank you for your work. A lot of people have put many hours into this, so thank you for all your hard work. One of the outputs of that is a mission for the church and a vision. And in our case, it's sort of revisiting. We already had a mission, so to revisit that. So let's read this mission together. I want y'all to do this with me. Our mission is to equip one another to follow Jesus in the communities where we meet and live, making a difference in the lives of our neighbors. We want to reach the young adults moving into NODA. We want to serve children and families. We want to grow a dynamic partnership with the YMCA and others in our community and be a church that is focused on the needs of others. So that's our collective vision for where we want to go as a church. So to me, that sort of begs two questions. One we've already answered. Where's the church going? Where does the church want to go? Right? And I think we have answered that through a lot of work. Hope you feel good about that. I know I do. It's been a great collaborative process. I think that's very important. The second thing, and equally as important, is how do I fit into this mission? How do you fit into this mission? How do each of us fit in to this mission? So another way of saying the same thing is, what is your personal mission? Have you thought about that? You probably have. But the only way NODA Church accomplishes this mission is if each one of us rally behind this and our own personal mission is supportive of our collective mission. Does that make sense? So the challenge to each of us as we go about our daily lives, we talk a lot about living on mission for Christ. So what does that mean in the busy day-to-day world that we live in every day? It means that we're very intentional about creating margin in our life to be on mission for Christ. Because I can guarantee you, if you're not intentional about creating space in your life to be on mission for Jesus, it will get crowded out with all kind of stuff, right? That's just how life happens. It takes over. So to be very intentional about leaving time to be on mission for Christ. We talk a lot about, at this church, about sort of relationship evangelism, right? Rather than standing out on the street side corner and waving signs and all that, we think a more effective way is to build relationships with people, to establish trust and rapport, and to live a life that is different than what we see in the world, right? And then they're attracted to Christ because of our life. But the way that happens is to be intentional about having time to build out those relationships and understand that part of our mission is to share the good news with others. And I'm not sure we talk enough about that, to be honest with you. So it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for me. It's probably uncomfortable for you. But in the Great Commission in Matthew, Christ talks about making disciples and sharing the good news of all nations, and the Spirit will be with us. So we're not doing this by ourselves. Christ is with us. One of the other things we've done is we've been engaged in prayer vigils, and we've got another one coming up in a week or so to ask God to help guide the direction of our church and our personal mission, if you will, around where this church is going and why are we here? How can we make an impact? People jokingly say Christianity is not a spectator sport, so how can we personally be engaged as part of our personal mission to support the church's collective mission? There's a lot of ways we can do that. God has gifted us in many different ways, and we talk a lot about trying to really be attuned to what the Spirit is telling us, not just what we think. What is God telling us? Are we really listening for the Spirit to guide and direct us around the next chapter of the church here at Nutter, right? So we want to provide opportunities for you individually and us collectively to do that, right? And so I'm very pleased to announce that we've got an organization here. I'm sure you saw their table called Apartment Life that's here today. And I'm not going to tell you about Apartment Life. I'm going to let them do that. But I'm going to invite Andy Rossini up here in a minute to sort of lead that part of our worship. And Nicole, his wife, is over here. Nicole was going to lead this, and she had this unexpected trip. She just felt compelled to go to the emergency room this morning and get stitches in her leg, So anyway, I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're okay. But anyway, so Andy and Nicole, however you guys do that, are going to sort of come up and share with us a little bit about Apartment Life. And I want you to think about, number one, understand what the organization is and how it works. But the second thing is, I want you to think about, how does this relate to you personally, to me personally? How can I support and connect with efforts like Apartment Life or other things that Noda Church is engaged in to make a difference, to make a tangible difference, to be active in the work? Christianity is not just a theological thing. It is that, of course, but it's part of our daily walk. And so, how can you get engaged with apartment life. And so, Andy, come on up. I'll let you lead off from here. And thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Nicole,
you, Pastor
glad
Mike.
you're better.
Well, thank you, Noda Church, for letting us come today and be a part of your worship experience with you all. Nicole was supposed to do this, but I would normally have stage fright, but it's okay. I am also on staff at Apartment Life with Nicole, so we have the privilege of not only having been an Apartment Life volunteer team living on missions, as Pastor Mike shared, but now we're both on staff in different areas of the country as well. So I appreciate the opportunity for letting us come and speak. I'm going to do two quick things, and then I'm actually handing off the mic to another Apartment Lifer in just a second. First thing I want to do is just provide a quick introduction. And really, Pastor Mike said it all with the mission and vision that he just shared. Living on missions. What we do as Apartment Life, as a nonprofit ministry, is we help to connect the local church with apartment communities. So looking at Charlotte, you can't drive down the road without counting 1, 2, 3, counting all these apartment communities that have been built already or are currently being built. And a lot of us have lived in apartment communities or know somebody that currently is right now. The church cannot, at this point, given fair housing laws and so many other blockers, we can't just walk in and do the posters, the door invites anymore, right? And to his point, that's not how we like to present the gospel anyways. We want to build relationship first. We want to get to know people before we start throwing something in their face. So building relationships can often be done through events and through loving on people, meeting them where they are in life. So Apartment Life, we help churches connect with apartment communities by placing a team of 2 people, oftentimes a married couple, sometimes just best friends, to live in a unit at the apartment community and get rent concessed, as well as they host 2 events a month for that community. The events are all over the map of what they might be, but the idea is that you are inviting residents to come join in on life. Loneliness is something we've all battled at some point or know somebody that has been. It's not healthy. That's not the community God called us to. So why not, as Christians, can we not live on missions and build better community where there might be 1,000 people living in one place at a given time? So that's my, very brief introduction to what Apartment Life is. I could spend 30 minutes talking, but they'd come and take this mic off. They also gave me a handheld initially, but decided on this because I talk too much with my hands. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Justin up here. A quick note and introduction on Justin. Justin and his wife, Brandy, have been able to serve as an Apartment Life volunteer team, exactly what I just described, and they are local in Charlotte at a community not far from here. But Justin also has had the opportunity and the heart calling from God to plant a church or be a part of a church on ministry in the Charlotte area and has been prayerful over that, but decided to be an Apartment Life team on the interim to really meet the people of Charlotte, grow and love with them in community itself. So we're going to welcome Justin up in just a second. He's going to share about Matthew 9:38. I love the enthusiasm. I love him too. Matthew 9:38 is our core scripture, and I'm not going to take it away. Now, I will say, Justin, we gave him 5 minutes to preach a sermon. If any of y'all know a pastor friend, you got to empathize him really quick. That's like my wife saying, you got 10 minutes to go watch the football game. It doesn't happen. It's not realistic. But Justin, more power to you. So thank you. I'm going to welcome Justin up. If everybody can give him a quick round of applause. Thank you, man.
Yeah, Pastor, 5 minutes. Let's go. All right. Yeah, so like Andy said, my name is Justin. Me and my wife, Brandy, are Apartment Life team. Actually, right behind y'all over here at 36 Noda. So it was really nice being able to walk to church this morning. But I got 5 minutes, so I got to go. So, yeah, the verse is one very familiar to many of us in church, right? Matthew 9:38. But I'm going to read starting in verse 35 just to set the context. It says, "And Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, 'The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest.'" And so, couple things I want to touch on really quickly in this passage here. One is Jesus was going through the cities, through the synagogues, right? He's actively moving, right? So it's not a sit back and let them come to him. He's actually going to them. But it also says when he looked over them, these people who were outside the kingdom of God, how did he look on them? He said with compassion, right? And so a lot of times it's easy for us in the church to look at those outside the church and forget that once we were those people outside the church. If anyone in here is a follower of Christ, remember how Jesus came to us. Many of us, I would imagine, if we admit it, was not when we were actively searching for him, that there was some circumstance in our life that happened that drove us to the point where we were like, basically, and it's true for me, I basically was to the point where I had nowhere else to turn, right? And Jesus showed up and met me where I was at. And so we see Jesus saying to his disciples, look out here, the harvest is plentiful, right? There are people out here desperately needing to be connected to the kingdom of God. But how do we connect them to it? What he doesn't say is, all right, let's build something that's super attractive and let them come to us. I grew up in Chatham County, North Carolina. It's a rural county, Pittsburgh. I got some people who I don't even have to say Chapel Hill for because they know what I'm talking about. But I didn't grow up on a farm, but I have friends who farmed. And what I do know is that when the harvest is ready, you have to go out into the field and work it. And that's what Jesus is saying. He's saying, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Pray to the Lord of the harvest that he would send laborers. That means if we are called into this work, we're going to have to work. But the beauty is he doesn't say you have to do something different. It's kind of what Mike and Andy and everybody's been kind of touching on, this idea that the Great Commission, right, Matthew 28, if you read it in the original language, it's basically he's saying, as you are going, make disciples. So as you are living your life, you live it with intentionality and connecting people to Jesus and being the bridge that connects those far outside the kingdom of God to the kingdom. And that's what I love about Apartment Life, and I believe that's why it's our verse that we kind of hang our hat on, because what I love about Apartment Life, it actually gives us the ability to do just that. We are now incarnationally living in a neighborhood that God has answered the question, who are you called to reach? I don't have a question about it. I know the people in my building are who I'm called to reach. And so it becomes this idea of how do we live intentionally on mission in a way that connects people far outside the kingdom of God to God. And so, yes, through the Apartment Life program, we're able to connect with residents, doing monthly events, but it's so much more than that. It's being intentional about the time that we do have, right? So not just events, but how do we live our life intentionally on mission? And what I love about it, and what Mike just said, you don't have to do Apartment Life to do this. Everybody in this room has a set of relationships, whether it's family, friends, work, whatever. Jesus has called all of us into the same thing, to be intentional wherever we are, as we are going, to make disciples there. And for the church, as you guys are praying about the direction of where you're going, this is the call. Jesus is saying you don't have to do anything outlandish. It's not rocket science. It's literally just be intentional with the life that he's given you, with the relationships he's placed you in, and be intentional there and watch what the Spirit does with your obedience. And so I hope that was 5 minutes. Thank you.
All right, for our next segment, I'm going to invite up our panelists. We're going to go through some Q&A with some actual Apartment Life event coordinating teams. While they are coming to the stage, if y'all could put all eyes on the screen, we're going to watch a quick explainer video about Apartment Life.
We call them apartment communities, but most apartment residents don't have any friends within theirs. Research shows that residents in a happy, connected community are much more likely to stay, even if rent goes up. So these friendships, they're good for people and the bottom line too. That's why we created Apartment Life. To make your place the place, because people actually know each other. With Apartment Life, loving your neighbor looks pretty epic. From 3-course tastings to trendy pet events and yoga classes in the courtyard, we do more than host the occasional party. We also improve your online reputation and personally assess resident move-in and living experiences. As a faith-based nonprofit, we look for people with a gift for hospitality and service. All our coordinators are trained in fair housing and serve apartment communities of all kinds, tailoring programs to meet your specific needs. Since 2000, we've served 1.3 million units. That's 3 million residents from coast to coast. At Apartment Life, we're building connections that change lives and transform your community. And we want to work with you too. Improving your bottom line, bringing life. Apartment Life.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. So now we're going to jump into a quick panel section where I'm going to read off a couple questions for our teams. Before I do that, I'd love the chance for y'all to meet individually each of our team members. So welcome you all. Thank you for joining us today and part of Noda Church. If you all could just run down the line and just briefly share a little bit your name, maybe how long you have been a team, and where you are serving at a community. Feel free to share the mics down the line.
I'm Thomas. This is Melody. We've been about a part of Apartment Life, a year and a half. We're in Miller and York, which is Lower South End, Loso area. Absolutely. And South and Hollis. We absolutely love it.
I'm Justin Bolden. Me and my wife Brandy have been a part of Apartment Life a little over 3 years now, and for a little over the last 2 years, we've been in 36 Noda over here, right down the street.
I'm Ellen Sergio and Jay. We're an Apartment Life team for less than 2 months. We're newbies. And what was the other questions we were supposed to answer?
And then where you serve.
Oh, we're at Stillwater Community off of Monroe Road near Matthews.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ebony, and I am a single coordinator. I am currently at Land Tower Garrison Park in the, Upper Charlotte near Concord Mills area, and I have been a part of Apartment Life for 9 months.
Well, welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us with this. We're going to dive right in with some questions that we get all the time from people looking from the outside in. None of this is scripted. I'm putting all of them on the spot today, so bear with us. And then once we run down the line, I have about 3 core questions I'm going through. I'm going to turn it over to the audience. Make sure that you all have any questions. We're going to answer them for you as well. If we still haven't gotten them answered, come visit one of us in the back table at the end of the sermon itself. All right, so let's get kick-started. Whoever feels like answering it first, we'll just hot popcorn the mic and you go for it. So my first question is, keeping in mind that as you are serving as a team, you have the business side where you're working with the staff of the apartment community. You're focusing on events, online reputation, social media, all that fun stuff. There is a ministry aspect in which you have ministry, I would call it criteria or quota every month for invites to church, gospel presentations. So that's a balance of business and ministry. How are you all making sure that you're engaging in that ministry side every month effectively with the residents on top of the event planning and all that fun stuff?
I would say one of the easiest ways we found to be engaged is to simply ask them what are they doing over the weekend. So on a weekend, a Saturday or a Sunday, when we have events on Saturday, it's like, what are you doing this weekend? And one of the things that we'll say is we're going to church on Sunday. We let them know what church we go to. We invite them to church on a Sunday, and it's an easy conversation for them to have. Another quick thing is when Thomas goes and he does door knocks, because we'll welcome our residents in. A lot of times just in that questions that we're asking them, we're letting them know like, hey, we're here for you. We're your concierge service. If you're looking for restaurants, if you're looking for, a church. So we slide it in there. We let them know that we're there for them in any capacity they're looking for, even if they're looking for prayer. And so we kind of like ease it in without easing it in. And then it becomes a conversation later on.
I definitely agree. I guess, and even as I'm getting to know residents and building that community, you are getting involved in their lives and asking them questions and getting to know them. So there may be a conversation where, what church do you go to? And they're looking for a church, and then I'll invite them over, or I'll have a card, or they need prayer. So something like that. And even the office staff as well, like asking God to lead you in that space where the need is going to be met.
Love it. Awesome. My next question for you all is, how are you intentional at being able to, let me rephrase this, is there a specific testimony that maybe one of y'all has in which you interacted with a resident who initially had no context of church, Jesus, any of this fun stuff. How have you been able to share the good news with them? What does that look like practically without just throwing it in their face?
I don't know why they handed me the mic. No, I mean, and that's it. I think you hit on it. It's just being intentional. So, we have been at 36 Noda a little over 2 years now, and we I would say it takes, at least in our experience, close to a year of consistent intentionality to build up a level of trust with residents to where they know you. And they know I'm a pastor. I definitely don't try to hoodwink anybody. I tell them, because they're always like, what do you do for a living? So I get to throw that in the beginning. But kind of break down some walls. And then as you get to know them, it's amazing how many people have questions about faith, about God, all these kinds of things, even though they're not churchgoers. So it finally got to the point where, like, every event, people were asking us questions about, like, church and God and stuff. I was like, you know what? I think it's time. So we just started a weekly Bible study out of our apartment. And it revolves around a meal. I grew up in a Baptist church, so we like to eat. That's why it may be true at every church, but I know in the Baptist church we like to eat. So, but there was also something, if you look at Scripture, Jesus always sat at a table with people. There was something that happened when he shared a meal. And so that's what we do. We invited people into our home for a meal and then just to answer questions that they had about faith. And yes, we've had, I think the first Bible study we did, we had 2 people who had never been in church before. And then others who had been in church but had not been in church in a long time. And it's been going now for about a year now. And we have multiple residents who were not familiar with church at all and have actually attended church with us. And so, yeah, amazing.
All right, I have a testimony. So recently, two of the young ladies from the office staff, we were talking about the book of Ruth, and one of them was going through a breakup and an engagement, and she asked me to host a Bible study. And I was kind of apprehensive, but I let the Lord use me. And that Bible study, that 4-week Bible study turned into her inviting her sisters on there. Also, another young lady from the office started coming on the Bible study. Another resident that I connected with on site invited her over to the Bible study. So she's like, this has been a prayer that's been answered. I needed a group of women to just connect with. And I just got a text message from one of the staff this morning that another young lady that lives on site wants to be a part of our Bible study. And it's turned into from 4 weeks, and the Lord continued to lead us, and we've been meeting for probably almost 2 months now, but just bringing more women together that are hungry for the Lord and want to learn more. One of the young ladies had not been to church for a while. She had been angry with God because of the passing of her grandfather, but through the conversations, she's starting to let the Lord enter into her heart. So it's just been really beautiful to fellowship with them outside of work and church.
Awesome. Love the testimonies. That's the most critical part. As we run through and look at our, I hate to say it, but reports and data from our teams every single month, we're not just looking at numbers. We're looking at souls. We're looking at lives changed. We're looking at places where apartment life was not before, that we had unchurched, unsaved people, and the impact that they're having every single month on lives there. We have apartments that are up to 1,000 people on average that live there, and the church cannot walk in and do missions without a vehicle like Apartment Life. So just thank you to you all for what you do, the impact you have, the conversations you have. Every little seed that you plant, whether you see the result or not right away, is going to turn into something. So I'm not trying to preach. Let me jump into question number 3. All right, so when I say the word church, think of all people. Think of pastor, think of staff, think of congregation member, the collective body of people. So my question is this: how have you found or used the church as a support system for you all when it comes to being an Apartment Life team? What instrumental ways does the church affect what you all do?
Anybody want to talk? For us, it's been really critical. We've used our church a lot for prayer. So one of the things that we did when we first got started, we were really heavy on events. And so it was kind of like, oh, the church, like we knew about inviting our church in, like we're here, and it's such an honor to be here with you guys. And so we welcome you to the table. But we used them a lot for prayer. So we shared about Apartment Life. We talked to them about it, and now we're just now, after a year and a half, we're just now getting to the point where we're engaging more with our church, and we're saying, hey, we would love for you guys to come and volunteer. We would love to tell you a lot more about apartment life and what we're doing and how we're able to conversate and bless. We actually had, after a year, we finally got someone to come to church, and we were so excited about it. And here's the cool thing about it. The young lady came to church. She didn't even tell me. I didn't even know she was there. She waited until an event and she said, Melody, I made it to church. I was so excited. I came late, so I didn't want to let you know that I was going to be late because I didn't want to interrupt the service for you. She said, I came, I cried, I bawled, I gave my heart to Jesus. And the beautiful thing about it is, I said, God knew exactly what you needed, because you may have not have had that moment to just be and to cry and to really just soak it all in had we met for the first time, like in this environment at church. And so it was a really beautiful experience just to be able to witness, the gentle taps of Jesus. I call it the sprinkles of Jesus through our church being able to simply pray and now them walking through the doors.
That's good. That's good. Mine's a little different because we are a church plant, so which just means we're starting a church from scratch. So our church is intimately involved with apartment life because that's who we are. So everything from being a part of, helping with events and stuff like that, but also in our like week to week engagement with residents, and honestly, our prayer is that many of these residents will be a part of the church that we're planting here. And so, yeah, so it's kind of woven into the culture, if you will, of the church we're starting.
I have been leading a Bible study for the last 3 years with a group of women at the church that we attend, and they are all older than I am. So anyway, but we took 2 years to go through Torah, and we took an actual year. We took a year to go through Matthew, the Gospel according to Matthew. And through that, I've watched God touch their hearts and stretch their faith and their beliefs. And so when I was telling them about Jay and I joining apartment life, they immediately said, we want to join. We want to help you. We want to do what we can to support. So through that way, Jay leads a men's discipleship group. We have touch points in that way that we get personal. And we found that the personal touch, hey, come help me. I need help scooping ice cream, and people are willing to come scoop ice cream. So.
That's amazing. She brings up an excellent point. The events are fantastic for getting people connected. The events are really where that initial point of contact happens, but the power is really oftentimes in between the events. You're walking to the mailbox every single day, or you're walking your dog, or driving home from work. You're seeing that same face over and over again. Just an amazing time I think every single one of y'all use that word, intentionality or personality, just getting connected and not being afraid to step out and say, hey, neighbor, I haven't met you yet, or I've seen you at 6 events and I haven't met you yet. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you're doing today? And just a great way to kind of get plugged in with people. So thank you all so much for the responses. Stay tight for a second. Let's see if the audience, anybody have any questions about apartment life? Anything else? So I'm going to repeat it for online, but any of y'all are welcome to answer that. So a question from the audience is just the journey from really not knowing anything about apartment life to joining on board. What does training look like? What does getting yourself familiarized with the program look like? Kind of the onboarding process.
I know for us, my wife attended an event. She met someone, a life group, and she met someone, and she was telling her about these events that she does for her apartments. Next thing I know, my wife comes home. She tells me about it. She stays up during the night to read about it. The next day, she's like, we're going to fill out an application. So we put our application in. We went through the interview process, and it's a 2-3-step interview process that you go through. And then from that point, then they take you and they kind of match you with the community, whatever community you match with. So how you interview and what your likes are, what your dislikes are. Then they say, all right, we got a community for you. This is a match. You interview with the staff there to make sure you're a match with the staff, because you have to work together in order to grow out and build that community, as well as meet our neighbors with apartment life. For us, it was kind of unique because we were the first people to move into the apartment that we were. It was a brand new apartment. We were there for like 2.5 weeks with no one there. So we got a chance to kind of get settled in to where my sister-in-law, her apartment, she's sitting back over there. She's been in her apartment, but her apartment was up and running and residents were there and she just kind of got tossed in and had to pick up where they were.
And to add on to that, any of y'all have a good relationship with your program director? How do they impact you? What trainings did they put you through in the first 90 days? Anything, if you can recall that.
Okay. Yeah. So I found out about Apartment Life through Melody. So she told me about the Apartment Life and everything about it, and I was so excited. So I definitely wanted to jump on. And my program director is very helpful. She helps me with different ideas and budgeting and everything like that, knowing that I have to do 2 events a month, just giving ideas and of what to do, what has been successful in the past, and how to really be unique in some of the approaches to get more residents to come out and to have fun. So that's really the goal, is to really bring residents out. They really enjoy the events that we do put on, unique, fun events that are family friendly, and just being mindful of that, just so that we can connect with our residents and just being helpful all around.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah.
And I will say briefly that it is an intensive process. So they go from beginning to end. And so I remember the young lady who referred us, it took her 2.5 years to get in. She referred her daughter, it took her 9 months. It took us 2.5 months, but that was just all God, right? And through that process, one of the things that happens is you do go through extensive training. So once you go through the interview process, and it's quite a few more interviews than he mentioned, but there are several interview processes. And then through those interview processes, what happens are they're strategically looking at, are you a part of a church? How involved are you within that church? What are you currently doing within your church? Are you a part of any ministries? Are you a part of any life groups? You know, those types of things. Do you currently have a job? Like, those things are all a part of the apartment life process, right? I remember asking a question like, is it like you love Jesus, but do you really, really like love Jesus? And it is an interview process of ministry and business. And so they're going to ask you, I remember one of our questions was like, tell us about your salvation. Like in that interview process, but then it was also business questions as well. And then from there, they take you through the strategic, like typically I think you have to be about 10 miles, a 10-mile radius within your church home that you're a part of within the apartment complex that they want to place you. Because one of the main goals is they want you to actually invite people to church, right? They want us to be involved in the community. And so it is a pretty intensive process. Of course, we can answer more of those questions after the.
All right, so Melody's going to take over. I'm going to sit down for a minute. No, that was great. I love that. I think the important part is you are on a contract at the apartment community. Yes, you get your rent, big hefty discount on that. We want to make sure that the focus is really the gospel core. So absolutely, we're going to put you through the ringer as far as interviews go, making sure that if you've got a job, you can truly balance both. We are setting you, the team, up for success long term. We go through one interview with you, everybody can just say whatever we want to hear and vice versa. So we want to make sure it's an apartment that makes sense for you all, where you're housed and living. I want to also stress, I think Pastor Mike said it earlier, you don't have to be a team to do all of this. You can do this where you live in your neighborhood right now. You can do this in the communities that you're impacted right now. If you're taking one thing away from today, it's just this week, try and find a way to be intentional to just reach out to somebody at your local coffee shop or at your job site, whatever. Build community with somebody. I know that there's somebody on your mind that's been nagging you recently that you're thinking about, hey, I want to start a conversation, but it's awkward. Just reach out and ask them how they're doing. That's the most simple way to get connected with somebody. If you can do that naturally, you can become a team so well embedded in what we do as well. So, did that answer your question? Beautiful. Anybody else? Question? Logistical, spiritual, anything? I see a hand. Donald. From the apartment life side, what do we do to gain an apartment community? Yeah, absolutely. We have a whole growth team at Apartment Life full of full-time employees such as myself and my wife, Nicole. And she actually leans into this more than I do. So you can either come grab a mic or I can share. You want to come on up? She got bandage and everything.
I lost a little blood this morning, but it's okay. So we have amazing partnerships. So Mike, I believe Lauren was telling me that we've actually had 3 teams in the past that have come from Noda Church. So I don't know if they were before my time, but that made me really excited because that let me know that this is a church that is about serving the people. But we have a council in Charlotte that is made up of CEOs and developers who see the mission of what we do at Apartment Life, and they help us get onto these developments. And then we have people like Grace Star that we may not be connected with spiritually, but what they see is that these teams are creating community, and these residents have decided, hey, I want. And one of the things that we have learned from the Bible is that what is good for business is great for people. And so if we can create a space where people feel loved, valued, wanted, heard, then they want to continue to stay there and continue to renew their lease because they have found a community. And so we do trade shows, we do all types of events to really bring that out in people. But I would say a lot of it comes from our current partnership. When you make those connections with the property managers, those property managers become regionals. They become the vice president of real estate. And they remember those connections that they had day one with you guys. And it's like, hey, whatever we're going to do, we're going to fight to have Apartment Life on our communities because they're making a difference. And so we're at 23 communities right now, and we're growing. And one of the ones that's being built right now is J. Optimus Park, which is right down the road. And so we would love to identify a team here. But I want to hit on real quick just the community piece of the church, because some of y'all may already have a house. Y'all may already been rooted, but that's where we want y'all to come in. Pastor Mike, we want you to come and flip some burgers at a pool party for us, because those are the connections that really start to see, hey, it's not just Melody, but it's your whole church. And you start to invite other people in. That makes a huge difference. So I will say the Lord is blessing us. We have not had to work to get communities, which is crazy. Even in COVID, when everything was closing down, we stayed up. We hosted events all throughout COVID because people saw how important community was and how important it continues to be. Did I answer your question? Okay.
Awesome. I want to respect you all's time, so I just want to say thank you to the panel for coming and speaking on their own time with us. And then thank you, Pastor Mike, for letting us come as well. I want to introduce you back to the stage. Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me? All right. Thank you so much. That was great. I hope that you thought about, how does this relate to you personally, right? Do you have interest in being part of a CARES team? There are opportunities open in and around the NODA area that Apartment Life and NODA Church are in conversations around that, right? And even if that's not it, as she mentioned, if we place a team or teams in an apartment, then we have to rally around them and support them. Like she was saying, show up in an event and flip burgers for them or whatever. Build relationships with those people in the apartments. If you have been at NODA Church a long time, you know all about Apartment Life, because years ago, we have had 3 different teams. One, the very first one we did was sort of in the Pineville, South Charlotte area. Wasn't in NODA. We wanted it to be in NODA, but at the time there weren't any opportunities there. So we took that one to learn and grow and figure out how things work, right? Then we did one sort of up near the North Lake Mall area, right? And did that a little bit closer to home, but still wasn't perfect. And then we did a team at the Mercury right down the street here, right? So we have some experience. It's been a while. If you're relatively new to our church, you're like, well, I don't know anything about all that stuff, right? But we do have some experience. There's been a void where we haven't done anything. But anyway, there's an opportunity before us, and we would love to talk to you about that. We would love for you to talk to Apartment Life. They're going to be back at their table. There's a QR code you can scan. There's some handouts back there. If you are interested, talk to Apartment Life, talk to us. We're glad to engage you around that discussion. It firmly fits perfectly within our new mission that we all have conviction around. So that's why I wanted to start our conversation with our mission. This is right in our wheelhouse, right in our sweet spot, right? So this is what we have committed to be about as a church. So we want to provide opportunities to help us be as successful at that, right? This is one opportunity that's presented itself that we want to continue to explore and have discussion around. So, I think that's it. So Donald, are you up next to close us out with a song? And then Tim is going to close out our worship time. Is that where we are? All right. Thank you.
Let us all be standing, please. And we'll sing, I Want to Be a Worker. I want to be a worker for the Lord.